Tonight, we've kind of put together a starting place to talk about recruiting. For some of you, especially the older girls, some of this may be repeat information, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. As we go through it, if you think of questions, I would jot them down at the end. We'll open up to questions. I am a member of a lot of the group chats as well. So if you think of a question later, you can message me. You can always message Dave or your coach as well. But I think that it's helpful information. We're going to try to get out of here in about 45 minutes and then open up to questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Feel free to stop me or shout if you have questions. We're just going to try to keep everything on track. All right. All right. So to start, and I'll let Dave talk about this in a second, we have some recruiting visits planned for January that David has set up. On Saturday, January 21st, we will be going to Catawba College. That's in Salisbury, North Carolina. That's a Division II school. And then on January 28th, we have a visit set up at Guilford College. Both of those will be full-on visits. And in the morning, some of like Catawba, I know we'll do a shoot around. Guilford will probably do a shoot around, and then the games start at 2 p.m. David, do you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Hey guys, if you're not talking, why don't you mute your mic, because someone's playing music in the background and we're trying to record this for people that did not get on. Thank you. Okay. So we've set up the last couple of months. We went to Wake Forest, we went to Carolina and stuff. I think it's only right for all of us to see the Division II and Division III lanes. Those are very good at themselves. There's some Division IIs that are beating Division I's. I know Lenore Ryan beat Wilmington earlier this year. I know Anderson just beat Mercer today. So these people come and support Carolina Elite. We need to come back and support them. And you guys need to see that, hey, it's not D1 or bust, and that, hey, D2 is good basketball. It's not just the shovel that you'll get a D2 or D3 scholarship. Those kids can play just as well. So I just figured this would be a good way for you guys to get practice, being on a visit, seeing a campus, going through shoot around, and all that stuff with the Division II and Division III coaching staff.
Yeah, and I'll just echo off of that. I think it's really beneficial, no matter how young you are, to go on these visits and see a D2 and a D3 school. Like Sarah Matthews at Guilford College is one of the biggest supporters of Carolina Elite. She coaches at a Division III school, but that's by choice. She probably has a waiting list of 50 kids who want to go to Guilford. I know that because I know about 20 kids myself just in the Triad area who would kill to be able to go there. So I think, I know when I went through the process, I think there's a lot of people who believe you can just, okay, if there's nothing else, I'll go do D3. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. I played Division II. Had I waited a little bit longer in my recruiting process, I could have played Division I, maybe. But I had a pretty good career. It's pretty competitive. I think you'll be surprised. David's also trying to set up a visit in February at Lenore Ryan, which is ranked number 4 in the nation right now. So I just think knowledge is power. The more you see, the more you can make educated decisions in the recruiting process. I was one of those kids that I ended up Division II, didn't ever know about Division II until I was going into my senior year. So I think the more you know, the more you can prepare, and the more opportunities you can have down the road.
Hey guys, Brittany's being very modest in her D2 career. She was a 2-time All-American. She holds many records at Pfeiffer. She's in the Hall of Fame. She's like 3rd on scoring. Like, she had a very great career, and goes down as like people are going to see her name in the record books for a while. I remember watching her scouting against her when I coached at Rivermill, And it was, so good players go to D2 as well. So go ahead, Brett. We'll move on. But I just want to make everyone know that, like, you can go be really good at the Division II and Division III level and get national, recognition from those as well as Division I.
Thank you. I think it comes down, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but start thinking about the role you have at your current high school, and the role you want in college. For me, I could have gone and set the bench maybe for a year or two before I played Division I, and I got to start right away as a freshman in Division II. That's not always the case, but we'll talk a little bit more about like roles when we think about recruiting too. It's not all just about like where can I go. It's about the best fit. All right, social media. So your social media, think of it as your athletic business card. And I've got a video to share that Dave found in a minute that talks a little bit more about that. But you want everything you post to be appropriate and represent you in the best light. That goes for Twitter, that goes for Instagram. And I know sometimes, guys, that's not fun for kids. Like, you have to think about it, and some of your friends may not, but that's the difference. When you go to play college, it is a job. You're representing that coach. Their livelihood depends on you. So that also means like how you dress. Like, we don't need, talking, I'm a female, I can tell you, like, you need to be careful of what you're posting, that it's modest. Okay. I'm not saying you can't post when you're out on the beach or things, but just make sure it's appropriate, because you're building your own brand. David's going to talk a little bit about NIL in a second, but the more you can think about your social media as your brand, I think that's the best thing you can do. Whenever I came out of college, I had about 10 offers at different schools just because of the way I represented myself, and expressed my interest in coaching before I graduated. So I think there's even more opportunities now for student athletes, but coaches want to make sure you fit their brand. How are you going to represent yourself when you're there? The best way to prove that is how you're representing yourself now. Dave, you want to go ahead and share a little bit about NIL?
Yes. All right, guys. So, like, the next wave in college athletics is NIL, and NIL is like name, image, likeness. So, college students right now are getting paid off of their name, image, likeness. And what that kind of equates to is like how many followers you have, how much interaction you have with your social media. So, I know this sounds really funny, but everyone that's part of Carolina Elite, you should be sharing, retweeting, all that stuff for people to grow followers for both of you guys, for everyone to see how good Brittany's doing and how good Coach Lynn's doing. All that matters, so it drives people to your Twitter and Instagram page. The more followers you have, the more money you're making. So right now, it's like if you have 5,000 followers, you're getting like somewhere between $250 and $500 a month if you get a brand that gets you to start posting on Instagram or Twitter or any TikTok, all that good stuff. And it goes up from there. When you get over 10,000, 15,000, you can make some really good money. And we're not just talking about the big schools, like you have to go to, UNC or Texas. The two twins out of Fresno that are now at Miami, they got big deals before they went to Miami. So it's just something for you guys to think about, something for you guys to help each other. And it's simple enough as, me and Brittany are friends. I'm just sharing her highlight tape when we make it, and it goes, just for it to build more attraction. Brittany, you might want to touch a little bit on it as well.
Yeah, I just think like the more times that you share it on your story on Instagram, even if it's a highlight, or they don't even necessarily have to be on your team, it's really good for them as a player. They're going to share your stuff. It's good for our program. Don't think of it in a competitive light with your teammate. It's also good from a recruiting standpoint. If I play with David and he's blowing up, that's more coaches on the court. And if there's more coaches on the court and there's a coach on court 2 saying, hey, everybody's on court 1, I'm going to go over there and check them out too. So it helps build everything. I think it also helps build unity in our program. But the more we can share, Twitter, it's a simple retweet. I think there's certain kids that do a really good job of that. And those are the ones that I think have even more followers. So just kind of share the love. I know that all of you guys don't want to share something every single day, but the more you share, other people will share. And I think we can all benefit off of that as a program and individually.
Hey, I want to chime in just for a sec. This is Lynn. So the social media NIL stuff, it's really being talked about a lot at the collegiate level now. We see it. I work with a lot of agents actually around the country that do different things in that realm, but I actually have already seen at the high school level, even within our club, I've been contacted on more than one occasion for a couple of athletes about, hey, can we pay you something per month? I think in the next couple of years that the NIL stuff is going to actually trickle down into high school a lot more. So, and one of the things when you ask the people that are really out there building this infrastructure about what does it mean to be successful social media wise, it's not that you're the best, certainly not that you're the worst, but that you're interesting. When people watch your stuff or look at your stuff, like they're interested in what you're posting, or you have an interesting way of putting things. And I just think about 2 kids that I know get a fair amount of traction from just followers that come to mind that are interesting. We have a young lady on the 17U team, Cam, that she takes photography and puts herself in settings that are really cool and, kind of more artsy or more like outdoorsy and interesting. And she gets a lot of hits. We also have a young lady on our 8th grade team that just has a style that is really, really unique and kind of, trendy. And when she posts a video or some post, like you can see that style and that flavor come out. So I really encourage you all to share one another, just like David and Brittany said, but the NIL stuff, it might be closer than you think. It's really getting super constructive in the high school, in the college realm, because it's translating immediately to dollars to live on in college. But I'm already seeing activity in the high school realm too, and it's not just for the superstars. So just wanted to chime in with that.
Thank you. All right, so moving forward, David found this video, and I think it kind of breaks down the social media, what your Twitter should look like. I know it's about football, but it really goes for everything. So I'm gonna share that real quick.
Your Twitter is your athletic business card. Your profile picture should be something athletic. Your header should be, nothing crazy. It can be whatever, but just don't make it out of pocket, obviously. Your @ should be your name, and then, your height, your weight, where you're from, phone number, link to your huddle, all the good stuff, and get a good GPA through it.
So I'll speak to that pretty quickly. I know I've been kind of learning all of you guys through social media, and I'll get to know you in the spring when we can meet in person. But some of you guys are really hard to find on Twitter. Instagram, a lot of times I can find you easier because y'all are all friends with one another. But if it's hard for me to find you, someone within our program, imagine how hard it's going to be for someone outside of our program to find you. And I'll tell you this, college coaches have a lot of kids on their list. If they have to search and search and search to find you, they're probably not going to spend their time doing that. If they can't find you, they'll just move down the list. And I think that's a missed opportunity. That doesn't mean they won't recruit you. It's just a missed opportunity to add to your value. So all of you guys, I would make sure that you have your Twitter set up.
Your Twitter is your athletic business card.
Go to the next one. This is kind of an example right here of what your Twitter should look like. So first off, like your name should just be your name. I know some kids like to put random stuff. But we want your name at the top, and we want your name in your handle. Okay. That doesn't mean anything extra. Baller girl 12. We're not doing anything like that. Your name, you can put your number. Sometimes names are repetitive, but your name is what coaches are going to search you by. So use a picture of you playing basketball. Okay. I know that sounds simple, but if there are multiple names listed, they can say, oh, this one is the basketball girl. Easy enough. Okay. You want to be easily searchable. Like I said, guys, put your high school name, put your class year. When are you graduating? Put your club team. Everybody should say FBC Carolina Elite. You can list your your specific name on it as well. You can list your position, your height. I think it's beneficial to also list your GPA because it just is another check mark for people. You can put your city there. I think that's helpful. Right here, guys, where there's a link, all of you guys, and I know Lynn's working on some of the younger kids, but those will be finished up soon. Y'all all have your individual websites. And that is such a tool that I think is being underutilized by a lot of you guys. Wow, if I'm a college coach, and that used to be my job at Campbell, like I was in charge of every recruit they put on the list. I had to go follow them. I had to show coach, hey, this is what their information looks like. Hey, coach, we're not recruiting this kid. Hey, coach, I can't find them. If you have your website right here and it has your highlights built in, it has all your information built in, that's a really cool resource for them. They can see full games. They can see everything right there. So that's what I would have here. You can also, sorry, letting some people in, pin a tweet at the top. So like right now, if you want to pin your high school schedule, great. If you want to pin a highlight reel of you, awesome. In the spring, especially when we start going out for travel ball, like you should pin your travel schedule at the top. I can't tell you how many tweets I saw last summer saying from college coaches saying like, thank you to all the recruits that like pin your schedule at the very top of your page. If they are searching your name, they already know who you are. Like this pinned tweet at the top of your Twitter is only shown when someone clicks on your name. So if someone's clicking on your name, it's because of something we've shared, they've seen, or they're really recruiting you. So at that point, they don't need to see necessarily like another highlight at the top of your page. They want your schedule. Make it as easy for them to say, okay, I'm about to be at this tournament. This is where I'm headed. All right. It's all about saving people time, especially at the college level. All right. So things to post, your schedules, positive recaps of tournaments, camps. So if people post about you, make sure you're retweeting that. You can quote tweet it. Guys, you can also like DM it to our Carolina Elite account. I'll repost it. I try to repost as much stuff as I see, but sometimes I just miss it. It depends on the time of day it's on there. We follow a lot of people and a lot of people follow us. So sometimes I just might miss it. Tag me in it. You can comment. You can message it to me. Just send it to the account, our Carolina Elite account, and I'll repost it. All right. That's good stuff for you. And it's good stuff for our program. If you go on a college visit, you want to post that. Even if it's unofficial, doesn't matter. If you're at a basketball game like the Wake Forest event or the Carolina game we went to, that's a good thing to post. You can tag the college coaches that hosted you, the school, the program, just to thank them for their time. Obviously, you want to post about your college offers and athletic and academic accomplishments. The academic stuff is just as important as the athletic part for a lot of reasons, because it shows you're dependable. I have really seen, you know, sometimes the college offers can spark other offers. It doesn't mean if you don't have one, but once you get the first one on the table, sometimes it can roll. So we want to post that. If you ever have questions about how to word something or how to post something, you can always ask me or David as well. If you have new highlights or game film, feel free. That's good stuff to post. Retweeting your teammates, that's good stuff to post, because it shows them that you care about your teammates. All right, we're avoiding inappropriate posts. We've already talked about that. Guys, that includes what you like. I had a former player who just recently, I'm scrolling through my Twitter and I see something crazy on my like feed. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm not following this. No, but so-and-so liked it. You'd be shocked how much stuff pops up just because you like it. So be really careful about that stuff. You can laugh at a tweet and you don't have to interact with it. Okay. Think about a post that maybe you'd be comfortable with all your parents seeing or your grandparents, or a future college coach. That's the way you have to think about it. All right.
Hey, Britt, I just want to say this real quick. Like, guys, I understand Twitter. I mean, I understand everyone doesn't like Twitter and everyone wants to be on Instagram, TikTok, and other stuff like that. College coaches use Twitter.
Yep.
They're not going to scroll through Instagram to look for stuff. They're going to follow you on Instagram, and then they're going to go to your Twitter page and they're going to see what you're posting, what basketball stuff is, what's it called? On Instagram, they're just going to look to make sure you're not
drinking
You know,
and putting crazy stuff
yeah,
on.
yeah, putting crazy stuff on there. So like if you don't have a Twitter, if you're in 5th or 6th grade, it doesn't really matter. But if you're in like 7th, 8th grade, you get your parents to help you with the Twitter. They may not know, but like you need to have one and have some kind of presence on that social media. I just wanted to put that in there, Brett.
100%.
Brett, before we move forward quickly, are you going to talk about websites at all, or is that on a different agenda?
I think
That's a
that's
different.
you can talk about it. If you
Okay, let me just say this real briefly. On the player websites, everybody has to understand something. We spend a lot of energy to build them. To Brittany's point, they are underutilized. They could be utilized a lot more. If you're going to put it here, which you should, I need you to look at your page, and you need to look at it about once a month and just making sure that everything is still correct. And a perfect example is everybody's website pages right now have 2021, 2022 stats. All right. Well, we're in the 2022, 2023 season. And as we get to the end of the season, we want to make sure everybody's stats are updated with current stats. So it is your responsibility as the player to communicate to either me, David, or Brittany, hey, I need you to update my stats. Here's what they are. If you don't update them, then you're going to have old stuff. And it's just like looking at yesterday's newspaper. Like once you see it, you don't want to read it anymore because you already saw that. So just make sure you look at your website, make sure it's current. If you have highlights that are more recent than what's there, you can go on the actual Carolina Elite website, and where it says upload player profile, you can click on that box and you can actually upload newer highlights, and we'll put them on your website. So just don't take that lightly. No one has any understanding of how much has been invested to have those websites, but you do have to help us keep the data current, or otherwise it's going to look like yesterday's newspaper. So that's all I want to share.
Yeah. Just from an outsider, that was the first thing, I saw. If we're investing into that, guys, just make sure you're using it. If you're sending information to coaches, that should be something you include. All right, talking about making a phone call. And I know Dave will talk a little bit more about this, but I'll go over the general things. Before you make a phone call, you want to send a text the night before or the morning of the call. So let's say David sets up a phone call for you guys. Okay. He says, hey, Brittany, Campbell wants to talk to you next week. They want to talk to you on Monday. Call around 7. Okay. On Sunday night, I'm going to text the coach that I have the number and say, hey, coach, this is Brittany Hudson. David Kent told me to give you a call tomorrow. I plan to call at 7. You can also, it's either the night before or the morning of. 30 minutes before you call, you're going to text them again. Hey, coach, I'm going to give you a call in about 30 minutes. If I miss you, I'll call again. Okay. I have good morning, good afternoon, whatever you want as like a little introduction. Then you need to call at the time you said you'd call. Okay. If not, David or myself or whoever's setting up the call is going to get a text saying, hey, weren't they calling me? Okay. You want to be prompt with that. All right. If they don't pick up, it happens, guys. People have families. People have a million things going. Sometimes it happens. They are not allowed to call you back before June of your junior year. I'm sorry. So if they miss you, you're going to wait 5 minutes and you're going to call them again. If they don't pick up, then that's okay. You let me or David know. We'll talk to the coach. This happened just like a month ago. Coach is like, hey man, sorry, I forgot about it. I have a lot coming up, family emergency. Tell them to call the next night. And it was all square. Okay. During the call, you're going to ask 2 questions. All right. So let me fast forward to this one real quick. Before you make a call, you also want to make a list of 10 questions. Now, this is something I'm working on. David and I are going to put together a folder of like recruiting information and resources for everyone. Some of you guys, this is very easy to do. Maybe you're very extroverted. You like to talk. Some of you guys are hams. I can tell by seeing your social media. But for some of you, maybe you feel awkward. I know for me in my recruiting experience, my dad was like, you need to talk to them like super, like they're your teacher or someone, and I was very like tight-lipped and very careful. When I got to Campbell, I learned like coaches are on a calls with a lot of recruits. They want to see your personality. They want you to loosen up and talk. And maybe it won't be all about basketball, but you want to make a list of some questions and you want to ask about 2 of those questions. Okay. I would also say there's certain questions that your coach should ask versus you. So like, for example, where do I fall on your recruiting list? Like that comes from a coach better than it comes from you. So that's something, a resource we're going to build for you guys. Because I know that's something that I get asked a lot. I would also like do your research a little bit. I'm not saying you have to do that every phone call, but before your first call, like make note of any relevant information about that program, team, or coaching staff. Maybe they just had a big game like tonight. Let's say you had a phone call tomorrow with the coach from Anderson. Well, they just beat Mercer tonight, a Division I team. That's a huge deal. So that's like, hey coach, congrats on that big win. That shows them like, hey, this kid's interested in me. They're taking initiative, because that doesn't always happen. Maybe you look at their coaching staff on the website and you say like, oh man, like this coach is from our area. That just happened. We have a kid who's on the phone with Louisville. Well, one of their coaches is from Greensboro. So she could say right off the bat, like, hey coach, I see you're from Greensboro. Where'd you go to school? And that's something that helps you stand out a little bit. I think that's what helps you make connections in this recruiting process and gives you a little bit more control. You want to take every coach's call. I don't care if it is the smallest school and you've never heard of it. If it's in Alaska, I really could care less. The reason I'm telling you this is you can't, like, beggars can't be choosers, and you never know how things like the dominoes are going to fall. An opportunity is an opportunity, and where someone is now doesn't mean that's where they'll be in a year. For example, Caitlin Grasillo was at Wingate last year, which is a Division II school, a very good Division II school. David actually helped leverage her into a position at Chattanooga. She got that position because she came to our Final Four party. He introduced her to some people. Next thing you know, she's a Division I assistant. And what's the first thing she does? She calls Dave and says, hey, thank you for helping me get this position. Who are your kids I should look at now that I'm D1? Or, do you think that these kids that I was recruiting at the D2 level would transfer over to Division I now? So you just never know. And guys, it's also a small world. This college coaching world is very connected. I know a lot of situations where there may be a lower level coach. Let's say, I'll just use Campbell because that's where I was. We could be recruiting a kid and be like, man, this kid's out of our league. Well, if I'm really good friends with, Shimmy Gray Miller, who's up at Minnesota, and I say, hey, Shimmy, you might want to take a look at this kid because she's out of our league, but she's in your league and she's in our area. That happens more than you'd realize. So, like I said, take every single coach's call. Nothing bad can come from it. At the very minimum, you're getting practice being on the phone and building relationships. That's a skill that I think just being able to communicate, make small talk is a skill that lasts far after basketball as well. David, anything you want to add to that?
No, just make sure like every person's important to talk to. Like she says, you never know where one person is going to start to where she's going to finish, and you don't know who's connected. So you don't want to talk to Thomas Edison University, but they're like, hey, they were kind of rude to me. They didn't want to talk to me. They also tell their friends that too. They're like, I don't know about that kid. They didn't want to take our phone call. They're going to pass along good and bad information about you. And then the other thing, the questions, there's no really bad questions, but I would ask stuff that's relevant to like what you want to do. So if you want to be in criminal justice, you might want to say, hey, what are the degrees, or what's some of the stuff you can do? I can get a degree in stuff like that. And then you want to ask questions about the basketball program and stuff like that. How do you, there's a bunch of those. And like she said, we're going to build a kind of a folder for you guys.
Yeah, just make sure you're representing yourself positively, whether it's the school you're interested in or not, because it also trickles down to our younger kids. If you're rude, you can ruin that relationship that we might have with that coach for future kids. So it always comes back around, guys.
Hey, Brittany, can you back up to, there you go, that slide. I know there's a lot of younger players on this call too. if you are on this call and you see this screen, you need to take a picture of this because this is really important. I actually have a kid I know that didn't follow this approach to dealing with a college coach that was trying to connect and make her an offer, a good offer several years ago. And she just couldn't figure this out. And the college coach gave up on her. And as it turned out, that would have been her very best offer.
Mm.
So,
That happens more often than not, guys. There's a lot of kids who, I know 2 kids in this area, I live in Winston-Salem, who are 2 of the like best kids in this area. And they had a lot of traction. They had, both of them actually had been connected to Dave, either in a different program or Carolina Elite. And he got them on the phone with some people. But they didn't follow up. They didn't continue on. They didn't like show the initiative in the relationship. Dave, I don't think people realize how much of a benefit and advantage you have by having David. I've been a part of, a different AAU program, and I've seen a lot of different AAU programs. It's really, really important when you play for a program to have someone who's pushing you to college coaches. This, there to an extent, you have to trust the process, but you do have to have someone who believes in you and backs you, and your coaches do that. But that's so much for a coach to focus on the game and the travel, communicate. Like, you have a built-in David Kent who has these relationships and is pushing you guys. You have to do the backside of this. We will build some of these resources for you. If you have calls before then and you want some help, shoot me a message, shoot David a message. We are more than happy to help you, but you have to also meet him halfway on that. Because those kids specifically ended up going at a lower level than they could have, just because they didn't really meet David in the middle and follow up and do what they needed to do. So like I said, ask 2 of your questions. They want to see your personality. Kate Sears, Jada Cook, if you guys would, Kate, if you want to go first and kind of share, Kate's been on the phone with a lot of coaches, maybe share some input you might have for some of the younger kids on the call.
Yeah, I would say one of the main things would be, like you said, about personality. I think a lot of the talk is small talk, not as much about basketball. So, like your favorite food and Netflix and stuff, like they'll ask you about that. And so just showing your personality, because in reality, like, they're recruiting you not only on the court, but like also who you are off the court. And so they want to get to know you. And then my last, another thing that's been like big for me is just like making sure like all my stuff is on the schedule. I think week by week and stuff, just putting everything on a schedule has been very important for me, like in like stress level and stuff. And so that also doesn't only help you, but also the coaches, like being able to plan their week and stuff. So I would say those are the main 2 things. And then also just, some coaches are going to be easier to talk to than other coaches. And like, it's okay to have awkward conversations, because that's going to happen. And just try to connect with them like the best you can.
So Kate, you're talking about schedules.
Yeah.
Reflect a little bit on that. So coaches are going to not just have one call with you. They're going to say, hey, well, let's talk again in a couple of weeks or whatever. So you're talking about like that kind of schedule, like schedule to know when you're supposed to call who, right?
Yeah, like I think it's big about like asking them like when they want you to follow up and stuff like that. And it helps them because obviously they're talking to a ton of people. So if they are able to put people on their schedule, then it's easier for them and also easier for you. So yeah, just kind of asking them how often they want to talk, and then just being able to follow up with them like over text and like through David and stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate.
That's so important, guys. Dave can set up that first call. Once that first call is set, of course, David can continue helping you, but really try to take the initiative of like, before you get off the phone, like, hey, coach, I have one last question. When do you want to talk again? Like, when should I call you again? And can I call you again next week? I think that's where sometimes like kids can drop the ball without really intending to do so. They just think, okay, well, David's going to tell me next week, or the coach will follow up with David. People are busy. They're in season right now. So the more you take control of this process, the less stress you're going to have. I think that's a really good point, Kate. Jada?
Let me add something real quick.
Yep.
So if you're 9th grade and under, you want to plan on trying to get the coach either once every 3 weeks or once every other week. Like the older you get, the more frequent you want to talk to them. So I'm just using this. If I get an 8th grader on the phone, they're probably going to only want to talk to you maybe once a month, once every or twice a month. They're not going to want to talk to you a lot. So you'll be able to spread out the phone calls, but you do need to figure out what schedule that is. And then I know we had Jada was going to give us some input as well. Jada, you on here?
Yeah, I'm here. So yeah, basically taking back off of what Kate said on like schedule and all that stuff. But communication is really like the biggest thing. Like say you forget to call the coach and all that stuff. Make sure, you know, you give them like at least text them or tell Dave to text them for you, give them a reason why as to you couldn't make the call and then just reschedule again. And another thing that I say that really helps me, well, like helped me in the beginning was like keeping notes on each school that you talk to, keeping notes on like what their programs like, what the culture is like, what area it's in, because it's, all that stuff's important on what you want in a school. And it also helps for like conversation wise when you get back on the phone with them and all that stuff. And so you won't be like lost in the conversation. So I feel like jotting down notes and stuff and you know, doing your research and all that, it helps really a lot.
I think
I
that's
got
great.
you.
Yeah, I think
So
that's great.
go ahead, Britt. My fault.
No, I was just gonna say again, like what I'm hearing from Kate and Jada is they're taking, you know, David has helped them. Obviously, their skill set has put them in a good situation to be on the phone with coaches as well. But they're taking these opportunities to be on the phone and they're taking advantage of them. They're kind of controlling the situation by taking notes, by preparing beforehand, by making schedules. Like, I just want it to be very clear that like we are resources for you, but it is very much like a two-way street here. So just I just want to reiterate that. I think that's great advice. Go ahead, David.
What I was going to say, this is for Kate and Jada, is some of the schools that you have offers from, have they not picked up the phone from you time to time due to a baby, you know, cleaning the baby's bottom, something changing, other stuff like that? Or is only the schools that don't pick up are the ones that you haven't got offers from?
Definitely both. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like if someone doesn't pick up once or twice and you have to reschedule, like should people be like, oh, they don't like me or anything like that?
No, definitely not. I like if they don't pick up, you know, just shoot them a text and be like, just let me know when's a good time for you. And if they don't hit you back, then it's so what, you know, they'll probably hit you back eventually, but don't feel like any certain type of way if they don't answer or hit you back, because at the end of the day, you know, they got a life too, and if they're in season, they're definitely gonna be busy. So
Kate, you got anything to add to that?
No, I would agree with that. I mean, like Jada said, everyone has a life out of basketball, so they're probably just busy.
I got you. And they usually hit me back if they can't talk to you in Kate's timeline. Like that, Kate has to go through me, so I get a lot of times where I have to tell Kate, hey, they told me to call you back right now and stuff like that. So like don't take it personal and don't think, oh, this coach doesn't like me or they don't want to recruit me or anything like that. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Britt, you think there's anything else we need to add, or I know we were going a little bit longer than what we're wanted to.
Hey, let me just say this one last thing for the younger girls on the call. I know that this seems like this is a long, far off, distant thing for you guys because college is maybe way out, but it's not. And here's the thing. If you get on a call with a coach and you get a regular time to talk to a coach, it may not be the school that you want to end up at, but they could end up at a school you want to be at. But I can tell you this, if you've been talking to a coach for 2 or 3 or 4 years, once a month, once every 6 weeks, whatever, and you're in a close competition with somebody else of a similar skill set, you're going to get the offer over the other person. And so like the time is now. The time is not a year from now, 2 years from now. If a college coach has interest in you and you're ready to talk, you got to put this into action now, not 10th grade, not 11th grade, like as soon as the calls start happening.
Yep.
I just want to point out, like, we talk about schedules and all of these things. Some of you, calls may not start until you get closer to your junior year, and that's okay. Like, we'll talk about that. Like, everybody's kind of running their own race in that sense. But once you're a junior in June, they can start calling you. So at that point, you won't necessarily need myself, David, or your coach to help set up calls. Like, they can call you directly. If they miss your call, they can hit you back right away. At any point, if you're confused about who can do what, that's a good question to ask your coach or David and I. All right, so I'll let David talk a little bit more about this, but the main point of this one right here, guys, is what I just said. Like, we're all running our own race. So like horses, when they run, I didn't know anything about this until David just told me, and I looked it up, and it's real life. But obviously in race, like horse racing, they put these things on horses and they're blinders. So the horses can't see to the left or the right of them. They can only focus about going forward. And I think that's the way that we all have to operate. That's the way kind of David pointed, like, used the metaphor. And I really liked that. Everybody's going to be different. Everybody can, but the difference in our race is everybody can win their own race. If you look forward, I'm telling you, I played on a team in high school with girls who played in the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten. Like, I was always like, oh my gosh, this recruiting process is the worst. It's so scary. My recruiting is not at the same level as theirs. What am I doing? It made me so much worse. It made basketball less fun. This process can be stressful. You have resources here to help you through it. When you feel stressed, reach out. I've been through it. Dave's on the other side of it a lot. Like, I've coached and helped kids through the process. I've played and been through it. I know it's stressful, but like, the best thing I can tell you is you have someone who is busting their tail to make sure you end up in a good situation. Parents, if you only knew the stuff that David does behind the scenes, like, I know that you can't always see those things, but I'm telling you, as someone who's new and seeing all of these things, I don't know any other program who does this. So like, if you have questions, ask. Like, the more control you can have in this process, the better. Because, and when I say control, I just mean knowledge. That is the control of the situation. Okay, David, is there anything you want to add to that?
I just want to tell everyone that, like, run your own race. Like, don't worry about the person next to you. If the person next to you has an offer, who cares? You just keep moving forward. Keep doing what your coach, what I'm telling you, what Brittany's telling you, what Coach Lynn's telling you. Like, keep doing that stuff. Don't worry about the person next to you, because the person next to you might get this, but you might be better or may need more time to develop. You know, if you're above 6 feet, your recruitment is going to go a lot quicker than a person that's under 6 feet, unless you have something that you're extraordinary at, or you're the top of something, and then your recruitment's going to go a little bit quicker. Like, I promise you this, every teen that's in high school and in 8th grade, there's going to be college coaches on your court. You're going to get recruited. You just have to, don't stress about it. Don't worry about why Brittany's getting recruited and David Kent's not, and Lynn Adams is getting some. You just keep getting better, and let us do the worrying, and let me be the person telling the coach that they're an idiot. Why aren't they recruited? Like, let me do my job. You guys do your job of just getting better.
And have fun. Like, when you get to college, I know that's the dream, because it was my dream, but like, it will become a job, and that's the reality. It'll be the best job you ever have, but it will be a job. So like, I don't think sometimes we realize, like, Coach Lynn, all of the people involved with Carolina Elite, your parents are working so hard to make this whole experience very positive, you know, super beneficial. Enjoy it and just play loose and have fun with basketball, because that's when you're going to play your best.
Hey, real quick.
Go ahead.
Brent, sorry, just in regards to running your race. So one thing I'll chime in with is that, you know, David organizes and spearheads and leads and follows up and documents and builds database entries and does all kinds of creative stuff. But our recruiting team is very deep. I mean, David does a lot. Rashawn's helped out a lot. Brittany is full-time with us now. I help a lot. Andy's involved. Coach Mo is involved. Coach Sasha is involved. We've got 2 people on the West Coast now involved. Rico is involved. We got NARS out in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we have 10 different people that advocate for all of our players around the country. David is the lead person. He coordinates who needs to handle what because it's a relationship thing. But if you have anxiety or you don't understand or you want to try to figure something out, to Brittany's point, like it is intentional that our college recruiting process is far and beyond above anything that anybody's ever done, because that is the place that we want to make our mark on this game, that all of our kids will get recruited and all of our kids will understand the process from the jump. So it's deep, and just want to let you know, it's not just 1 or 2 people. We actually have like 7 people now on the team.
Yeah, it's such a benefit. That's unreal. Like, you know, I know you don't know unless you know, and I've been on the other side of it, guys, so I can just speak to like being a part of some other situations. It's really, really, I mean, wow, what a great situation. It's something I'm jealous of now that I'm, you know, even 31. I'm not going to touch on this because we've kind of hit our time, but I am going to just kind of show you guys some information maybe for a future time. I've kind of, like with Dave, worked at putting some information on what separates Division I, Division II, Division III. This visual is something that we'll go over more in depth, maybe in another session, but it kind of just, you know, this is the highest tier of Division I. And, you know, this is not just like subjective. I came up with this stuff. This is, you know, information that you can find on the internet yourself. But this is the top tier of conferences. All of these are Division I conferences. And in that folder we're putting together, we'll also put a list of schools for each conference. But we've also like started to list out like, hey, what does it take to play in this conference? What does this conference specifically look for? Because it is, you know, especially at the Division I level, it is pretty specific conference and level. I've gone into depth about some Division II information that I don't think is common information.
Hey, Britt, I hate to cut you off. Can we go
You wanna
back
go
to
back?
that Division I thing real quick?
Absolutely.
All right. So, guys, I want you to look at this real quick. At the top is Power 5 plus the Big East. All right. So, like, those are going to be like, that's kind of the top, like she said, the top of it. But if you start scrolling down, the pyramid gets bigger. So there's more kids that can play Division I in those areas. The people at the top are the best of the best. All right. The next tier, like most of those people still talk to people in Power 5. So like when you think about this stuff and everyone, you know, always comes to me and is like, well, I can probably go play at Davidson. Well, Davidson's in the A10 and they're right next to Power 5, you know. Oh, I think I can go to ECU. ECU's right next to Power 5, you know. Right below that, they're like, oh, App, we can just go play at App. App's in Sunbelt. That's a high level near there. Then you have what's the Colonials in there as well. Oh, we'll just go play at UNC Wilmington or Elon or A&T. Well, they're in that third tier. Like what people in, I'm just using North Carolina schools right now. Those are not low level Division I's. Like there's the SoCon, Big South that are still good and they've beat Power 5 schools. Like ETSU beat Vanderbilt this year and stuff. So like any of those can happen. Just those, I just want everyone to understand, just because this school's close and they don't win a ton of games doesn't mean they're not in a upper level Division I. And Britt, you might be able to say it a little bit more eloquently than what I just said, but I just wanted everyone to see that and look at that and understand where like conferences rank. So you're not upset when you hear me say, hey, I don't think you can play in that conference. Like, it's not because I don't think you're not a good player. It's just, you know, like this is their depth chart. The bottom 3 there only get one bid to the NCAA tournament. And I mean, that's just something like when you get older, you want to think about. So 2-bid leagues are the ones at the top. 2 to
That
3
means
to
they
4
get 2 bids to the national tournament.
to the national tournament. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know we were going to do another session at some point in the next few weeks and really dive deeper into this part. So like, I think that's a good overview for now on that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
We can go forward to just questions and open it up from there. And like, you know, even if you guys want to jump off, if you want to shoot a message in and say like, hey, this is something I'm interested in for a future session. This is something I'd like to be included for another session or something I'm curious about or in the recruiting folder, that would help me and David as well. Anything you want to know, like that's our job to try to like help with. So if you have questions, feel free to stay on. If not, we hope you've started your New Year's off with a great day.
Yeah.
We appreciate you jumping on.